Good day to everyone. I will be presenting our presentation on rationalism and empiricism. In this module or lesson, I will be helping you trace the philosophical roots of the three central questions in the theory of knowledge. I will be helping you understand this framework for us to differentiate types of knowledge. But just to give you guys a gist, we will begin with the question about the source of knowledge, followed by the nature of knowledge, and finally the validation of our knowledge claims. On the three things that I've mentioned, only in the context of the three central issues or questions can we able to differentiate the rationalist from the empiricist philosophers. In addition, this would also help us have a clear distinction in terms of formal and empirical. And without further ado, let's begin. To begin, there are two major traditions in modern philosophy. These two are rationalism and empiricism. Makita natin sa taas. Sa pagkakalam natin dati, we define rationalism as something that we can prove through reasoning or proof. Para naman sa empiricist, we define it as the view that knowledge comes from our experience or senses. Para naman sa ating kaalaman, yung senses ay ang abilidad nating makarinig or hear, amoy or smell, tikim or taste, hawak or touch, and kita or makakita or yung sight natin, yung eyesight. Just to let you know, in the succeeding slides, we will be able to get to know more on rationalism and empiricism and especially their differences. Once na alam na natin yung mga pinag-uusapan natin, na-differentiate na natin sila ng dati pa sa previous years natin, we will be able to find yung gap or yung differences nila in the succeeding slides. So let's begin. Before we begin with the essence of each tradition, I will be mentioning some philosophers that represents each type of tradition. First, in rationalism, it is represented by first René Descartes, Baruch Spinoza, and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. These philosophers are widely known for their philosophy teachings, obviously, that made things complex and more understandable about oneself and about knowledge. While on the other hand, empiricism is represented by first John Locke, George Berkeley, and David Hume. In the succeeding slides, just to give an information, especially in empiricism, David Hume was actually one of the examples of being an empiricist philosopher that will help us differentiate rationalists from the empiricists. Now, we're going to talk about the three central issues and why are these questions created. But first, we must define what is epistemology. Well, epistemology is a branch of philosophy which concerns the theory of knowledge, or in simple terms, the origin of knowledge. We may ask ourselves, why are these questions need to be answered? It is because it is the best way to compare or to consider one theory as a tradition for the origin of knowledge. To state, the three essential issues are what is the source or the sources of knowledge, and given the source, what can be shown, and lastly, how do we validate our knowledge claims. In the module, it is stated that all theories of knowledge from the ancient times down to the present must be able to provide an answer to these central issues. To also guide us, we will also be utilizing these questions to compare and analyze each type of tradition that we are going to discuss. Now, rationalism. It states that the reason is the source of knowledge, wherein this type of knowledge this source could provide if formal knowledge is found in formal sciences. Now, sa ating kalaman, ang formal sciences are formal systems such as mathematics, statistics, information sciences, and more na may kita natin ngayon na pinag-aaralan natin. This includes logic and reasoning, kaya ito nasama sa rationalism. Now, rationalists also accepts only one truth. It is the coherence theory of truth, which will be discussed later on. It also states that the five senses are not genuine source of knowledge, which already contradicts the essence of empiricism, which I mentioned earlier na ang basis ng knowledge nila ay ang five senses. Now, to add information, knowledge derived from reason gave rise to formal sciences such as algebra, geometry, mathematics, and logic. Na-mention ko kanina kung bakit hindi ito source of knowledge. Bakit nga ba ang five senses are not genuine sources of knowledge? Sinasabi dito sa rationalism na ang rationalism ay unreliable and sometimes, or worst case scenario, contradictory. Sa baba, one example would be perceptual illusions kung saan makikita natin sa bottom left ay isang building at isang tao na nakatayo. Makikita natin dito na kapag malayo ka sa building, makikita mo na parang maliit lang yung building, no? Parang kasing tangkad mo lang. Pero kapag lumalapit o habang palapit ng palapit ka, lumalaki yung building. Does that mean na nagbabago yung size ng building or hindi? Kaya ayun ang isang problem, no, ng rationalism. Another example would be that mountain looks blue at some distance. At hindi naman ito totoo. Kasi sometimes, kapag lumapit tayo sa mountain, nakikita natin na brown ito or green, di ba? Pero kapag lapit natin, hindi naman talaga siya blue. Wala pa tayo nakikitang blue na mountain. And lastly, railroad tracks that appear to converge at a distance or parang nagiging triangle na direction siya. Nakikita natin sa picture na to. Now, moving on to empiricism, makikita natin na sa definition pa lang, no, makikita natin na magkaiba na agad ang pananaw. It states that the senses are the source of knowledge. However, it also states na ang empiricism or ang mga empiricist philosophers do not deny that reason is a genuine source of knowledge. So, ibig sabihin dinadeny na ang goal ng rationalism, which is that reason, logic is the source of knowledge, ay totoo rin para sa empiricism. Pero, to have knowledge of the physical world is to use the five senses that we have, kahit unreliable or defective it may be, or how contradictory or unreliable our five senses are. Kaya bakit kahit unreliable or defective kailangan pa rin natin gamitin? It's because our senses are the only faculty that can come contact with the physical world, or in simple terms, we see, touch, smell, hear, and taste that could result to experience and experimentation. Kaya natin makita ang difference ng rationalism at empiricism. Ngayon, sinabi ko nga na sa inyo na bago mag-start yung discussion natin na ang empiricism ay may mga philosophers, di ba? Na-represent siya nila tulad nito ni David Hume. Now, si David Hume meron siyang statement na ginagawa na pinakita sa module. Ito ang sinabi niya ay, all perceptions of the human mind resolves themselves into two kinds, which I shall call impressions and ideas. These perceptions which enter with most force and violence, we may call impressions. And under this name, I comprehend all out sensation, passion, and emotions as they make their first appearance in the soul. So, isinasaad dito ni David Hume na Hume accepts sensation or yung five senses natin. Pero meron pang iba. It also includes passions and emotions that result in genuine ideas. So, sinasabi dito na hindi lang sa paggamit natin ng five senses ay makakreate na agad tayo ng isang idea na pwede natin gamitin sa daily life natin. Sinasabi dito na ang paggamit natin ng five senses ay isang factor lang para makagawa tayo ng genuine idea. Sinasabi niya dito na dapat sinasamahan nito ng passion at emotion para magkaroon tayo ng more understandable of what we are trying to have or what we are trying to get, or basically kung ano yung gusto nating malaman or yung ating genuine ideas. David Hume also states that all the objects of human reason or inquiry may naturally be divided into two kinds. To it, its relation of ideas and matters of fact. Sinasabi dito na Hume wanted to commit to the flames, or gusto niyang magpakita ng ideas na without impressions or the use of the five senses. Yet it seems logical positivists that followed Hume resulted to a series of meaningless statements na makita natin dito. That followed Hume resulted to meaningless statements or ideas emanating from his passion and emotions. Pero makita naman natin dito na totoo naman na that the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the square of the two sides, that 3 times 5 is equal to the half of 30, and matter of fact, which are the second objects of human reason, are not ascertained in the same manner, nor are our evidence of their truth, however great, of a like nature with the foregoing. That the sun will not rise tomorrow is no less intelligible a proposition and implies no more contradiction than the affirmation of that it will rise. So that means na parang mas sure yung statement na that the sun will not rise tomorrow kaysa sa that it will rise, di ba? Mita natin dito na hindi natin alam kung ano mangyari bukas, kaya ang statement that the sun will not rise tomorrow ay parang affirmation compared sa that it will rise. That it will rise nga, pero kailan? Yun yung pinapakita niya dito. In our discussion on empiricism, the empiricists disagree with the rationalist, wherein the empiricist states that the faculty of reason could only guarantee a formal knowledge such as mathematics and has no empirical content. Now, because of that, there was an agreement made by Hume, an empiricist philosopher, and Leibniz, a rationalist philosopher. It states that there are two types of knowledge claims, which are truth of reason and truth of fact. Wherein sa statements ni Hume a while ago, relations of ideas and matter of fact, respectively. It also states that if there are two types of knowledge claim emanating from two sources, which is reason and experience, there should also be two theories regarding the validation of these types of knowledge claims, which we call coherence and correspondence theory of truth. Makita natin kanina sa ating discussion on rationalism na rationalists only accepts one theory of truth, which is the coherence theory of truth. Dito sa empiricism, makita natin na they also accept reason, but they also accept our senses as a knowledge claim. And therefore, since dalawa yung pagkuha nila knowledge, their validation also includes two theories, which is the coherence and the correspondence theory of truth. Now, moving on to our dogma, the dogma states that there are only two types of knowledge claims, which was perpetuated in the 20th century by the logical positivists. The first one is the rationalism, the second one is the empiricism. Now, the rationalists only accepts one source of knowledge, which is reason. It only accepts formal knowledge found in formal sciences such as logic, mathematics, and science. It also only accepts one theory of truth, which is the coherence theory of truth. Now, empiricists, on the other hand, accepts two sources of knowledge, which are reason and experience. It also accepts two types of knowledge, analytic and empirical. Now, since there are two types of knowledge and two sources of knowledge, it also accepts two theories of truth, which are correspondence and the coherence theories of truth. Now, just to give you a short explanation on what are coherence of theory of truth and correspondence theory of truth. Now, we're gonna first begin with their coherence theory of truth. Now, the coherence theory of truth is a belief that is true if it coheres or if it connects with other statements that we can take to be true. Now, one common example is the statement there is a table in my room. Now, yung statement na yon, pwede siyang maging true or pwede siyang maging false. Pero true siya dahil let's say na ang room mo ay isang space, isang malawak na space kung saan kasya ang isang table. Now, ang table has 3 legs, di ba? And meron siyang flat surface at the top which can be used for writing and like for example placing your laptop or mouse. Now, ikaw naman when you state my, that means you are inside the room. Now, you are a human being which has a which has a which is made of matter, which explains that you are inside the room, and therefore the the statement there is a table in my room fits within our belief and it is true. Ayun siya. Now, moving on to our next theory, which is the corresponding theory of truth. It is a belief that is true if and only if it corresponds with something that exists in the world. It also exemplifies that holds that truth are discovered and not created. One simple example would be Pedro. Let's say Pedro is 6 feet tall. Diba? If we think or if we believe that Pedro is 6 feet tall, therefore, yung statement na Pedro is, let's say ang statement natin is Pedro is 6 feet tall, is true. Kasi, nalaman natin na 6 feet tall si Pedro. Kaya, ang statement na Pedro is 6 feet tall ay totoo. Medyo po nakakalito pero ayun po. I hope you all learned a lesson today and I hope I was able to be of help to all of you, and I will be accepting questions via direct mail or direct message from my messenger. Thank you and have a good day.